And welcome back. And new tonight at 11, we're shining a little light on an effort to create more diverse, equitable, and inclusive workforces here in Western New York. Now, October is National Disability Employment Awareness Month. And as our Liz Lewin is here tonight to explain, people with disabilities are at an even greater disadvantage now 20 months into the COVID-19 pandemic. Right, Liz?
Yeah, and they're not the only ones, Scott. National Disability Employment Month is about a lot of things. It's about breaking down some of those stigmas, fighting for equality, and of course, celebrating disabled persons in as many ways as possible. The workforce can be tough, but tonight I learned that there are things we all can do to make it easier for those who have it a bit harder.
It's a continuing battle to educate people about the fact that people with disabilities can be a viable part of the workforce.
There are more than 50 million Americans who identify as disabled persons, which means chances are you know more than one. By definition, a disability is a substantial impairment that makes major life activities more challenging. Routine habits like showering, brushing your teeth, cooking a meal, even just going to work. For millions of Americans, these activities are not only difficult, but they're painful. And then there's living with the stigma.
So it isn't just a person in a wheelchair or a person who's deaf or a person who's blind. It's a person who has problems with thinking and cognition. It's a person who has problems getting around their home.
Todd Verwerk has cerebral palsy. For over 50 years, he's relied on the help of his wheelchair, aid, and other devices to make life just a bit easier. For the past 25 years, Verwerk has advocated and fought for disability rights as Chief Policy Officer for Western New York Independent Living.
31 years after the passage of the ADA, and I'd like to be able to give you good news and say that the picture is getting better, but it really isn't. We make some gains and then we make some losses.
It's no secret there's a national labor shortage, but the disabled community is on both sides of that labor divide, as an untapped labor market and as a community facing its own shortages.
It did worse for us in unemployment than it did with the general population.
The Americans Disability Act was passed in 1990 to ensure people with disabilities are protected and have necessary accommodations to thrive in integrated work settings like their abled coworkers.
If the reasonable accommodation process is done effectively, right, in leveling that playing field, there is no difference between you and that other employee.
But the reality is this: disabled persons aren't always seen as a benefit in the workforce.
All right, my heart's beating a little fast. So to those of you watching this story tonight who may be suffering or struggling in silence, I want you to know that this is a personal story for me. I'm disabled and I also work full-time. I wasn't sure if I should share this or say this, but I am because I care more about making a difference. You're not alone. Having a disability is a challenge, but it doesn't need to be a struggle. There are resources like Western New York Independent Living and many others locally that can help you navigate through this. And there are people like me who will listen. So please call the number on your screen right now. Reach out to me on Twitter. There are people who can help. Scott, back to you.
Absolutely, and we're so glad you're here, Liz. Thank you for that story tonight. We appreciate it a lot.